set up. Rolling. Good morning, guys. Good morning. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome into the PT on Ice Daily Show. Hopefully my microphone's working. CrossFit class just quieted down out there. The music was just banging a moment ago. Now we're a little bit quieter. I'm your host this morning on this beautiful Fitness Athlete Friday. This is Mitch Babcock on the PT on Ice Daily Show. Thank you for joining us. It's been a while since I've been back on this on the screen on the podcast. It's always good to grab the mic for a week. And this episode today on Fitness Athlete Friday is called Push, Don't Pull. And we're going to be talking about the deadlift. Yes, I know what you're thinking. The deadlift again, Mitch. Yeah, but I got something coming for you and hopefully some practical stuff based on literature review that can help you out in the clinic. But first, let me talk about what the cool team is doing across the country. 2021, the comeback year for courses. We've got a bunch coming on the road. And I want to tell you where you can find some that are coming up. This weekend, Alan jumped on a plane. He's joining the extremity management crew out in Kansas. So he's out of the office this weekend. Rocking it out with the extremity team. We've got a lumbar spine course going on next weekend in North Dakota. Would love to check out North Dakota sometime. Never been. So jealous of the lumbar team going out to North Dakota, hanging out. That's next weekend if you want to jump in with those guys. Modern Management, the older adult, our good friends Dustin, Christina, and the whole team of the MMOA division that's just killing it, is on the road in Arkansas. If you want to jump out to Arkansas and catch the Modern Management course, that's where that'll be next weekend as well. And then big news is the launch of the online management of the injured runner. That's with Jason and Megan Peach, Jason London, Megan Peach. That starts March 2nd. So jump in on the first cohort of a really, really cool course, 8 weeks all online with those guys. Talking injured runner stuff right from your computer, racking up those CEUs in the same interactive format that you're familiar with the fitness athlete division. So a lot of really cool stuff if you are looking to get ahead of the CEU game early in 2021, whether that be a live course or an online course. Our online courses are cruising. I want to give a special shout out to anyone who is in our current cohorts of the essential foundations of the clinical management of the fitness athlete, or who has continued on into the advanced concepts of the clinical management of the fitness athlete. We are cruising. We're on week 3 of both of those courses. And we're happen to be tackling the deadlift this week in our essential foundations, which is making this fitting topic for us today. And also, if you signed up to the Hump Day Hustling email, you saw an article come out talking about pushing, not pulling on your deadlifts. And that's the article I'm going to be referencing today in this PT on Ice talk. Pause, because if you're not signed up for the Hump Day Hustling, you're totally missing out. I don't know why you aren't. It's one email once a week. We don't spam you. We're just giving you some heavy hitters, some cool punch points of research that's coming across the whole team's desks. Sign up. If you don't know how to sign up, I'm going to tell you right now. Go to ice.physio. That's it. Go to ice.physio, scroll to the bottom of the page, and drop your email address. No, we're not going to sell your email to anybody and you start getting plagued with all sorts of stuff. That's not how we do business. We're just going to keep you in the loop of the good stuff that you need to be the best practicing clinician that you want to be. So if you're not signed up to Hump Day Hustling, please do so. If you are signed up, you saw this article this week. Hopefully you checked it out, talking about deadlifts. And if you've taken our Clinical Management of the Fitness Athlete live course, you've heard myself or Zach or Alan talk a lot about pushing through the ground on the deadlifts. And this comes with a little bit of controversy, or maybe it's like not really what you had in mind. You're thinking to yourself, well, Mitch, I thought the deadlift was a pull. I thought it's a posterior chain exercise that I need to be focusing on my hamstrings. I need to be pulling the bar off the ground. And while a deadlift is classified as a pull movement, if it falls in the category, when we really start breaking it down and looking at what the best performers are doing from an EMG standpoint, what's really going on, we're actually seeing a lot more pushing happening than pulling happening. And what we see mechanically from an injury avoidance standpoint, injury prevention standpoint, if we get athletes to really tighten up and then push through the ground, they typically feel deadlifts a lot less in their back. Right? And how many athletes have you said, or maybe you yourself have kind of been, putting deadlifts on the back burner a little bit because every time you do them, you're like, man, all I feel is in my back. And I know it's strengthening my back, but should I feel this much in my low back when I deadlift? And the reality is no. Yes, we're strengthening the low back. Yes, the EMG activation of the low back is going to be high, but the role of the back in the deadlift is what we call holding the line. The role of the spine is to hold the line in the deadlift. I'm rapping this morning. I didn't even know I was going to do that. The role of the spine is to hold the line in the deadlift. It needs to get flat and stay flat. It's not pulling. And when we think pull in the deadlift, we see a lot of athletes move from a little bit of flexion in their setup into extension throughout that first move, right? We're taking them back and pulling from flexion into extension, which beats up on the back a bunch especially when we're looking under heavy loads. But when we think of it in terms of getting tight and flat and then pushing, we see a major reduction in how much motion is going on through the low back, right? So we start using this cue a lot more. Push through the ground, push the floor away, right? Like a leg press, like trying to drive the floor away as your back holds the line, maintains neutral spine position under those heavy loads. And then we see an article like this come out, the one that came through your Hump Day Hustling. And this is the one that I want to reference today in terms of, trying to add merit to this point that we're trying to bring up around, the deadlift being a push, not a pull. This article, Electromyographic Activity in the Deadlift and its Variants, is a systematic review that came out in 2020. Isabella Martin Fuentes and colleagues. You can check this one out. If you're not in the Hump Day Hustling, this is an open access article that you can download and check out. So EMG activation and deadlift exercise and its variants is a systematic review. Now let's talk a little bit about what they did. They searched all these deadlift studies. They understand the main point. Like, look, the deadlift is a foundational lift. If we're still having this argument about why people need to be getting stronger, resistance training for all of its musculoskeletal benefits, cardiopulmonary benefits, like bone mineral density, like if we're still sitting here arguing about whether or not people should be resistance training, that's not today's episode. We don't have time for that in the next 10 minutes. What we need to be looking at is like, okay, when we know that we need to be deadlifting, we also need to be concrete in what we believe and what we know to be loading, or what we believe to be activating in that movement pattern, so that as clinicians, we can prescribe the deadlift for the right person at the right time and know what we're getting from a muscle activation standpoint. That's important to us, to our job and our exercise selection. And so this study is looking to try to say, hey, what studies exist out there that look at EMG activation in the deadlift? Let's sort through them all. Let's hash it all out. Let's compare it to its variants, things like RDLs, good mornings, stiff leg deadlifts, single leg deadlifts. Let's see how the traditional conventional deadlift compares to those. And let's see what the EMG activation really looks like in the deadlift exercise. And that's what this study did. It grouped 200 studies to start. And then it sorted out all the duplicates and all the ones that didn't fit the inclusion criteria. And what they really wanted to see was that we see at least 6 months worth of trained athletes. We don't want novice athletes in this category because we can't really trust that how they're performing the deadlift is really going to give us concrete information about EMG activation. So we want inclusion criteria that brings people in that have been doing the deadlift for at least 6 months and are also injury free. We don't want folks coming in with already on board back pain, like knee pain, hamstring stuff. Like that's going to change their movement patterns. We know that. So we want folks injury free and who have been training the deadlift for at least 6 months. And so what we ended up getting was about 19 articles that the team systematically reviewed through in the age range here, 18 to 34. So that's the grouping of participants, if you're wondering about kind of how it shook out. Here's the results of the study. Okay, looking at EMG activation for the deadlift, this is what we find. Are you ready? The most commonly studied muscle groups in the deadlift are going to be the hamstrings, that being the biceps femoris is the most studied, followed secondarily by glute max. Those are looked at most commonly. However, they weren't most highly activated during the deadlift. Most highly activated muscles, erector spine and the quads. And you should be sitting here thinking, man, I really thought it was going to be the hamstrings, the glutes, maybe the erector spine as well. Erector spine and the quads. And what we saw was that the quads far outpaced, from an activation standpoint, biceps femoris, semitendinosus, the whole hamstring compound, and glute max. So we see quads coming in ahead of our hip extenders, our biceps femoris, our hamstring dominant chain of muscle groups there on the posterior chain. So why the heck, if this is supposed to be such a posterior chain dominated movement, are we seeing such high levels of activation from the anterior chain? That's because to perform a compound movement like the deadlift with strong mechanics, with good technique, and to move the heaviest load off the ground, it is not a posterior chain only exercise. There needs to be a strong push of the legs off the ground to break that bar off the floor. And we're seeing that when we measure vastus lateralis and rectus femoris, right? We're seeing it on both muscle groups. We need a strong push to break the floor with the barbell, and then allow the hips, hamstrings, and glutes to come in, the hips to pull forward through the bar so the athlete finishes the lift, also known as the sticky point, right? Where someone gets it to the knee but can't pull the hips through to finish. That's the role of the posterior chain, when them strong hips and hamstrings come through to swivel the pelvis forward and finish out the deadlift. But driving that heavy bar off the ground, you should be thinking the whole time, push, 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 right? Strong activation from the quads, outpace the hamstrings and the glutes, and a strong activation level from the erector spine. What do we say? The role of the spine is to hold the line. Yeah, it's cliche, whatever. I just made it up, but I'm going with it. I'm going to make a graphic for it today. I'm pretty sure of it. If you're looking at strong hamstring activation, if you want, maybe you're working with that runner hamstring, tendinopathy, you're really wanting to load up that hamstring a bunch. Yes, still include deadlifts, but if they're not feeling it there a bunch, don't be surprised. Then go with a variant of the deadlift like an RDL, a Romanian deadlift, or a true stiff-legged deadlift. The difference between the two, your Romanian deadlift's going to have a slight bend in the knee, but mainly just be a swivel of the pelvis, basically just hinging and standing up. Your true stiff-legged deadlift should be a locked-out knee and then that same pattern, or a good morning where the bar is on the back and still doing that posterior hip hinge movement. Those are going to be more hamstring isolatory in nature, all right? And we're seeing that in this systematic review as well. You're going to have higher levels of EMG activation of the biceps femoris and semitendinosus. Semitendinosus more so than biceps femoris, if you're wondering, on those hip hinge dominated movements like the RDL and the good morning. And when we ask people all the time, and we watch them deadlift in our live course, they try to show us an RDL when we're asking them to deadlift. And we need to know that those are two separate movements. The deadlift is going to be a much more functional, comprehensive movement that's going to attack the quads, erector spine very heavily, followed then by the posterior chain, hamstrings, and glutes, right? That's going to be, the role of the deadlift is to move the heaviest load off the ground with sound mechanics. Compared to an RDL, where the role of the RDL is to isolate and to try to just attack the posterior chain. So when we think in terms of deadlift, don't be thinking it's posterior chain only, I only have to use my hamstrings. That's where we see athletes getting in trouble, trying to move heavy bars under an isometric or isolatory type movement pattern like an RDL. That's not going to get the job done. You got to recruit more friends than that. You got to get the very strong quads involved. They're going to get the bar moving, and then your hips and hamstring can come through to finish out the drill, right? When you hear us say push, don't pull, what we're trying to do is get athletes to have a strong back that holds the line, that maintains neutral throughout the lift, get the legs to push, the knees to extend to break the floor with the bar, and then allow the hips and hamstrings to come through to finish out the lift. That's how you'll hear us cue it all the time. That's how we'll rehearse it in the live course when you end up joining us on the road for a live course, because I know you want to. Who doesn't want to move barbells all weekend and have a blast earning 16 CUs? But we're pushing, we're not pulling when it comes to deadlifts, right? So check out that study. It's pretty cool. Electromyographic activity in the deadlift, systematic review 2020. Also pretty cool in this is that it gives you this nice little chart breakdown. If you're checking this out on Facebook, you can see all of the studies that they reviewed, and over here on the side, conclusions of everything they found. So if you're interested in, like, some of these studies are really neat, looking at the use of chains, looking at Romanian deadlifts versus just regular deadlifts. What about isometrics deadlifts? Like, all of these studies that they reviewed in the systematic review with all of their conclusions from an EMG standpoint right there. A couple cool pages that if you're a deadlift nerd like me, you'll be going through with your free time today and checking that out. So thank you guys for tuning in and joining in with me. That's my 15 minutes. I'm glad to see many of you on Instagram. Alan, thanks. It's my favorite flannel. Hope your travel is good. Megan, thank you. I got the beard trimmed up this week. I got big engagement photos this weekend, guys. You little inside scoop. We're gonna get some engagement photos taken. I couldn't look completely like a stray dog, so I had to clean it up just a little bit. So, anyways, fun weekend for me. I hope you guys got a fun weekend planned yourself. Join a live course on the road. Join an online course if you're sitting at home. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a fantastic Friday in clinic and have an even better weekend. And we'll see you back here this time Monday. Take care, guys. Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.